Okay, then we will move to item B. Mr. Gorder, the 2011-12 District Preliminary Budget Estimates and Budget Calendar.
Quick enough for him.
There we go. I don't know if you can see this or not. If you need to move closer to the screens, I do have a couple handouts here that you can follow along with. Most of the information. And as I'm passing this out, I just would remind everybody that what you're going to see is very preliminary. And that we have a lot of different marks that we have to hit in order to have a budget in place. And on the back, we have a calendar that the board can take a look at here if you would like. And what you're going to see, let's see if we can just pull down. We'll just take a few minutes to review this a little bit. On January 6th, administration met and discussed possible 2011-12 preliminary reductions. We know we have some issues coming into the year, and that's from things we have heard from the governor's office like we talked about. And one of them primarily is that we're looking at the revenue limit sheet. We'll get to that in a minute, but the per pupil amount this year was set at $200. In previous years, TOMA is always at has been between $300 and $400. With the problems, the economic problems and the budget problems at the state level, that number was decreased by the former administration to $200. Okay, and that's why we looked at some of the issues that we had last year, and why we had to recommend some of the budget repairs that we had. Now, coming into this current fiscal year, we were hoping 200 would be the number that we would hit. But what we're hearing is there will either be a $100 increase per student or a $0 increase in students. So I will be building two budgets based off of those numbers unless we hear something different from the governor's office here in the next couple weeks or so. And the other thing to keep in mind as we're looking at some things, there's some legislation that's going to be put on the table. And as we go through and one of them that we've heard reported is that when we're looking at possibly the implementation of a QEO again. And the previous QEO was set at 3.8, and that was a minimum ceiling. Okay, and there's a big difference. The minimum is that a district, all we needed to do to avoid arbitration was offer a minimum of a 3.8. Now they're changing that to possibly looking at that as being a maximum, and they haven't set a maximum yet. So that will have some significant bearing on where the budgets ultimately shake out. Now, having said that, when we look at our estimates, I'm still looking at that 3.8 number because historically that has been the number that most districts have either been above or below, but usually right around that 3.8% increase. That doesn't mean from any point of view that that's a budget number for the Toma Area School District. That is just a starting basis because as I'm going to the different schools and as I'm sharing this, I don't want to be presumptuous and set ourselves up for a negative start to our negotiations. That is a process, and that process will take its course as all negotiations do. And of course, the board will be looking at and deciding where that's going to take place based on some of the information that I provide here of where the starting point will be. But I just want to emphasize the 3.8 is not a budget number as we're looking at salary and fringes. It's just to give us a historical perspective on where we have been the past years. And typically that 3.8 has been the number. Also keep in mind that if you would settle, whether it's a 2, 3, 3.8 or a 4.2, that number doesn't equate to a 3.8 when we're all said and done because we have lane movements and we have new teachers move in, so a lot can change with that. So having said that, as we look at the calendar, we met on the 6th. On the 17th, preliminary 11-12 budget presentation to the board for a list of repair recommendations. And all we're going to do tonight is look at what we looked at last year, and we just move those things forward. And again, a preliminary review of the estimate and budget process with the board. We'll be meeting periodically between then and the February board meeting, where I will come with a final, and I'll use the word final very loosely. It'll be a final estimate of where I think we may be at, because again, we have some pretty important numbers we have to hit. First, we have to find out what the governor's budget is, and that can change drastically. We're just not sure. The other is we need to find out what our state aid is. I won't have a state levy estimate at this point in time. We're just focusing on the dollars we need to pay our bills. That's all we'll be focusing on. In order to get the levy estimate, we're going to need our third Friday account, we're going to need our equalized aid estimate, and we'll also need our equalized value estimates. And we're not getting those until September, October 1st, and October 15th. I think our goal is to bring you, and you guys may want to set a meeting, whether it's tonight or in February, a meeting where we actually present our recommendations to repair the budget. Looking at Mrs. Zardi as we talk about this. And then hopefully finalizing that budget sometime in April. We'd like to at least present the budget the 1st of March, give people an opportunity, whether that's the public or staff, to react at the March board meeting, and then come back in the April board meeting and either take action or listen to more input. You'll have a reorganization board meeting at some point in time at the end of April that you could take action on, and then finally, if you really needed to, have that budget set by May 15th so we can get moving, because by the end of June we have to have a budget in place ready to present at the annual meeting. So a lot has to take place between now and then, and other than that, there are just dates on here that we are asking staff to meet as we go through the budgeting process. So we'll move into the first sheet that I want to explain, and I'll try to go through this very succinctly. I guess that's the best word I can say. I don't want to go quickly, and I don't want to do it briefly. I just want to get through it in a little bit of time here. And this is the same presentation. Basically, I'm going to the different buildings, giving them a basis for why we're making the decisions that we made. I don't know that we did a good job of this last year, particularly myself, getting out and explaining to our staff and even the public to a certain degree of why we're having the problems. I think we all know we have problems, but exactly how does that transpire on paper? So everything starts with the revenue limit worksheet as you're looking at right here. And I'm just going to move this mouse here. You can see where I'm talking about, and it starts with enrollment. And typically we look at enrollment on a 3-year rolling average. That 3-year rolling average is calculated based off the current year and the previous 2 years. It includes 40% of your summer school FTE, and then your FTEs generated during that third Friday count in September. Now FTEs are different than students. For our summer school, we only get 40% of an FTE. For our 4K, we get 60%. Our kindergarten through 12, we get a full-time equivalency. So we're looking at FTEs here. Last year, we had 31,331, and for each student, we got approximately $9,500. As we're moving forward now, we have to start looking at estimating the number of students we have for the 11-12 school year. And as we're looking at this, Toma's growth has always been slight to moderate. All right, maybe a little bit down once in a while, but pretty much slight to moderate, at least since I've been here over the last 5 or 6 years. So it's been pretty easy to estimate our student enrollment. The only glitch we might have had was in 2008. That's when we added 4K, but we knew those students were coming in, we planned for it, and we were aware of that. So as we're looking at our enrollment, we're putting in, I think our summer school should be pretty much flat. I'm not in, maybe a couple increases, but not a lot, maybe a decrease, but it should not be have a big effect on us. I'm looking at our overall enrollment to be pretty flat. I haven't heard anything to suggest otherwise. I haven't done a real complete analysis of our current enrollment to see how that looks when the classes leave, and I will be coming back with that. But the bottom line is, on a 3-year rolling average, we're now going to feel the full effect of our 4K program, and that is why when you look at our enrollment estimate for next year,